All right. So this is an interesting story worth reading from NBC News by Mark Tyler Nobleman. Oh, wait, no, that's the dude. Who's the author? Oh, it's just by the AP. I guess they don't give an author credit. I wouldn't want to put my name on this either. Okay, here we go. Mark Tyler Nobleman was supposed to talk to kids about the secret co-creator of Batman with the aim of inspiring young adults in suburban Atlanta's Forsyth County to research and write. Then the school district told him he had to cut a key point from his presentation, that the artist he helped rescue from obscurity had a gay son. Rather than acquiesce, he canceled the last of his talks. Keep that point in mind. We're long past the point where we should be policing people talking about who they love, Nobleman said in a telephone interview, and that's what I'm hoping will happen in this community. State laws restricting talk of sexual orientation and gender identity in schools have proliferated in recent years, but the clash with Nobleman shows schools may be limiting such discussions even in states like Georgia that haven't officially banned them. Some proponents of the broader laws giving parents more control over schools argue they extend discussion of sex and gender even if statutes don't explicitly apply to them. 11 states ban discussion of LGBTQ, RCMPQ, RTV topics in at least some public schools and are what are often called, no, they're not ever called, they're called Don't Say Gay only by leftists. It just prevents you from talking about sex with kids. According to the Movement Advance Project, an Alphabet Mafia rights think tank, 5 additional states require parental consent for discussion, according to the project. Legislation restricting Alphabet rights gained steam this year, but suppression is not new. Again, telling you can't talk about sex in front of a kid is not inappropriate. That's a positive thing. A school district in New Jersey, which requires curriculums to be LGBTQ RCMP positive, tried to bar a valedictorian from discussing his queer identity during a graduation speech in 2021. That year, a federal judge ordered an Indiana district to give the same privileges to a gay-straight alliance as to other extracurricular groups. 2 years later, Indiana passed a law banning discussion of alphabet people in grades K through 3. Again, K through 3. So little children is what we're talking about here. Schools nationwide have been challenged on books with alphabet themes or characters. Really, it's just the ones that promote like going on Grindr and child abuse and stuff like that. That's the things. So then, and many have removed them, including Forsyth County, which has been a battleground in the politics of schooling. Alphabet advocates say Nobleman bumped up against a moral panic fomented by conservatives seeking to roll back acceptance. The idea that these folks are saying that they just don't want to talk about it is all very disingenuous, said Kathleen Oakley, a lawyer for the Human Rights Campaign, a leading advocacy group. What they mean is that they don't want views other than theirs to be expressed, and they believe that this means everyone should have to hear what they believe. So the telling thing about this is leftists love to project, and that's what they believe. That's what the Human Rights Campaign believes, is you have to have our point of view, and no other point of view is acceptable. If you don't, you're a bigot, and everyone should just ignore you. That's their position. And so what they're doing is projecting it onto the other side. Whereas on the right, they don't care that people want to be gay. They just say, don't talk to our kids about it. Don't put it in elementary schools. It doesn't belong there. Children are not sexual beings. And the left is like, no, we want to be able to talk to your kids about sex. And the right's like, no. And then the left says, you're a bigot. Discussion of straight people with traditional gender identities is everywhere, she said. No, the thing is I don't know any of my kindergarten, first, second, and third grade teachers. Like, I didn't know anything about their spouses. I didn't know whether or not they had kids. They didn't talk about that because you don't talk about those things with children. You're there to teach them basic arithmetic, reading and writing and stuff like that. You're not there to talk about sex with them. Is everywhere, she said. And if all discussion of sexuality is going to be banned, Oakley said, then you certainly better not be teaching Romeo and Juliet. You don't teach Romeo and Juliet to K through 3. So that's the thing. Nobleman, a self-described superhero geek who lives in the suburbs of Washington, D.C., is best known as the author of the Boy Wonder, the secret co-creator of Batman. It lays out the story of Bill Finger, the long uncredited author who helped create Batman and other comic book characters. Finger died in obscurity in 1974 with artist Bob Kane credited as Batman's only creator. Finger's only child was a son, Fred Finger, who was gay and died in 1992 at age 43 of AIDS complications. Bill Finger was presumed to have no living heirs, meaning there was no one to press DC Comics to acknowledge Finger's work. But Nobleman discovered Fred Finger had a daughter, Athena Finger, that he said in his showcase moment of his presentation he estimates he has given 1,000 times at schools. It is the biggest twist of the story, and usually when I get the most gasps, it's just a totally record scratch moment. Nobleman's research helped push DC Comics into reaching a deal with Athena Finger in 2015 to acknowledge her grandfather and Kane as co-creators. That led to the documentary Batman and Bill featuring Nobleman. In Forsyth County, the author gave his first presentations at Sharon Elementary on August 21st. After Nobleman mentioned in his first talk that Fred Finger was gay, the principal handed him a note during his second talk that said, "Please only share the appropriate parts of the story for our elementary students," which is correct. I mean, the fact that he was gay is entirely irrelevant here. It has nothing to do with anything. Forsyth County School spokesperson Jennifer Caracciolo. Hopefully I said that right. Probably not. Apologies. Said that in just mentioning Fred Finger was gay isn't the problem, but she said it led to questions from students, meaning Nobleman and students might discuss sexuality without parents being warned. In the past 3 years, conservatives in the 54,000 student district have tried to tamp down diversity policies and sexually explicit books they view as immoral. Right, like Genderqueer, which it has explicit depictions of sex acts and discusses the abuse of a child. And then the other one is called This Book is Gay, which has explicit instructions on how to go on Grindr and meet men for sex. Those are inappropriate books for children. No one can even defend those either. And if you attempt to read them, you will always get shut down because they are considered pornographic. The district was sued by a conservative group called the Mama Bears after banning a member of that group from reading explicit book excerpts at meetings. Like I just said, a federal judge ruled the policy unconstitutional. The district was also warned by the U.S. Department of Education after pulling some books from libraries, with federal officials saying the discourse may have created a hostile environment that violated federal laws against race and sex discrimination. Nobleman's discussion of sexual orientation has nothing to do with the state English language arts learning standards his presentation was supposed to bolster. I'm not going to keep butchering her name. She said, "We have responsibility to parents and guardians that they will know what their students are learning at school." Nobleman said he was blindsided and agreed to drop the reference to Fred Finger's sexual orientation in remaining presentations that day, as well as 3 at another school the next day. But by the morning of the third day, Finger started fielding questions from reporters after the principal at Sheridan Elementary sent an electronic message to parents apologizing for the mention of Fred Finger's homosexuality. "This is not the subject matter that we were aware he was including, nor content that we approved for our students," Principal Brian Nelson wrote. "I apologize that this took place. Action was taken to ensure that this was not included in Mr. Nobleman's subsequent speeches, and further measures will be taken to prevent situations like this in the future." And so, on the third day he was presenting, after discussion with district officials, Nobleman refused to give the last 2 of his scheduled presentations if required to omit Fred Finger's sexual orientation. Right. Many parents have applauded Forsyth County's actions. Karakios, I don't want to mispronounce her name. Cindy Martin, chair of the Mama Bears, said Nobleman should be ashamed of himself. She argues that a 2022 Georgia law bans discussion of sexuality without parental consent for any minor because it gives parents the right to direct the upbringing and the moral or religious training of their children. No one has the right to talk to a child about sexuality unless it is the parent or the parent has given permission, Martin said. Mr. Nobleman did not have permission, so he went against Georgia's law. Matt McGuire, a Sharon Elementary parent who had a daughter who attended one of Nobleman's presentations, said he was disappointed by the message and felt the school district was being bullied by Martin and others into a reactionary censorship. The mere mention of the word gay didn't merit claims made by online critics that Nobleman was grooming or sexualizing children, he said, and ignored that Sharon Elementary students have gay parents. "It didn't sit right with me. It made me feel certain parts of our community were being kept as a dirty secret," McGuire said. "I couldn't imagine coming from a family with gay members and reading an apology just for saying the word gay." Well, it's not that they're saying the word gay, so that's a nice way to end it because it mischaracterizes it. The issue was, you're talking to little kids. You don't need to bring up his sexuality. It has nothing to do with the story. You're talking about the guy who created Batman, and his son has nothing to do with that at all. Like, his son is entirely irrelevant. You don't even need to mention his son, because his son has nothing to do with the story. His daughter's the one that helped him get recognition. So his son did nothing. And so his inclusion is unnecessary, an unnecessary detail to begin with. And the fact that he's gay is entirely unnecessary. So what a strange article to have. It just shows you this is the agenda. It's just to keep focus on these meaningless things. Meanwhile, inflation is at record levels. Steaks are $20 for $20 a pound for some of the things. Butter is $8 a pound. Milk is $5 a gallon. It's insane, and we're talking about this. It's amazing.